a wallflower guy might benefit from some training in narcissistic psychopathy, just to sort of balance them out a bit. So you can make some progress forward. That's why people like Andrew Tate are so popular. And I'm not saying that in an entirely dismissive manner, but there's a huge danger there. I had plenty of men in my practice who were, radically unsuccessful with women. I had one man in particular. He was so afraid of women, he couldn't use the phone. He was too afraid of everyone to use the phone. And he had been bullied like mad.
There's a lurking danger there too. So the rising attractiveness of figures like Andrew Tate speaks to the danger of demoralizing young men. Because if you demoralize young men, you make, what would you say, charismatic bad men become much more attractive. Because they're the men who say, well, to hell with all of this idiot constraint and pathetic morality, I'm just going to go and do whatever the hell I want. This is a kind of a narcissistic route to self-aggrandizement and attainment, right? But if the alternative to that is to lay, half comatose in your basement, being depressed about the impending apocalypse, a little bit of attractive criminality beckons as quite the compelling alternative. And that can easily make itself manifest on the political front. If you raise a generation of demoralized men and then you wave a leader in front of them who says some forthright, self-aggrandizing, semi-criminal behavior would be in your best interest, the probability that they're going to find that attractive, that kind of, that's a good route to a kind of fascist populism, let's say.
A wallflower guy might benefit from some training in narcissistic psychopathy, just to sort of balance them out a bit. So you can make some progress forward. That's why people like Andrew Tate are so popular. And I'm not saying that in an entirely dismissive manner, but there's a huge danger there. But generally what women want is something like confident, productive generosity, fundamentally. And so, if that's allied with physical attractiveness and a sense of humor and, the sorts of features that a man would also look for in a woman, so much the better. But your basic bet, and my suspicions are the guy who answered this question is probably young. First of all, no one likes young men, so if women don't like you, it's like, well, that's par for the course. Who likes young men? No one. Why? Well, they're basically troublesome and useless, and so that's why. So cross-culturally, women like men who are about 4 years older than them. And the reason for that is, women are more vulnerable on the sexual front, and they have to make themselves even more vulnerable if they have children, especially when the children are infants. And so they're looking for guys who are competent enough to be able to take care of themselves, at least, and then have enough left over for a wife and a dependent child.
Explicit training is a bloody leftist claim that, history is to be read as nothing but a patriarchal nightmare. The inference being that all of the competitive striving that characterizes masculinity is nothing but the force that manifests itself as patriarchal domination and tyranny. And so any boy that has any degree of compassion, let's say, and who might feel guilty for his toxic masculinity is going to be demoralized by the suggestion that his ambition is nothing but the manifestation of implicit tyrannical force. And if he escapes that, well, then the leftists are there to mop up whatever, bit of courage might be left by accusing him of being part of the force that's eternally raping the planet. And so you see, and I've seen thousands of cases of this, it's been devastating to me to see how widespread this is. The degree of demoralization that characterizes young men it's almost incomprehensible. It's incomprehensibly deep, and it's hurting people in a very deep way.
I would say to young men who are irritated at women is, if you're irritated at women,
as a class of creature, there's something wrong with you because they're right. You're wrong. They're right to not pick you. If they're not picking you, it's because they're right. I know that's a terrible thing to say, and I know perfectly well. It wasn't like I was particularly successful with girls when I was young. So I know what that rejection is like. I know what that fear is like. I don't know it as well as some men know it because I wasn't rejected outright. What do you expect from women? If you got pregnant because you had sex, you'd be pretty damn choosy too. So, clue in a bit. And then, well, don't they find you attractive? Well, maybe you're not. Like, have you paid attention to how you dress? Do you have a plan? Are you as educated as you could be? Are you a liar? Are you a rabid pornography user? Because maybe that's undermining your motivation to seek out a woman and grow yourself up.
Well, little hygiene is not such a bad thing. As a start, decent haircut, certain amount of cleanliness. That's a good thing. What's rule 1 in the first book? Stand up straight with your shoulders back. That's a good thing to do. What do women look for? Depends on the wisdom of the woman, obviously. But, well, it does because, narcissists can fool naive women. That's why narcissists propagate, by the way. And we know this because narcissistic psychopaths, young women are more likely to fall for narcissistic psychopaths. And the reason for that is they can't tell them from competent men. Because narcissistic psychopaths imitate competence. And that's their niche. And so they have a confidence that isn't justified by their ability. But the women check out the confidence as a marker of ability, and the falsely confident can fool them, especially if they're young and naive.
If you're rejected constantly and you're out there really trying, because that's another thing to ask yourself is, well, how many women have you actually asked out? And are you so sure that you're not picking women who will certainly reject you because you're trying to bat out of your league? Because you might be. So, and I'm speaking about this as a clinician too, because I had plenty of men in my practice who were, radically unsuccessful with women. I had one man in particular. He was so afraid of women, he couldn't use the phone. He was too afraid of everyone to use the phone. And he had been bullied like mad, and he had his problems. So I know what this is like. If you were better, you'd be more successful with women. So you have to have that in your mind. And you cannot be angry at women. It's stupid. Women? It's like women being angry at men. It's a sign of psychological trouble.